Grains closing mixed on Thursday. Chip Nellinger is back with analysis. And Chip, a big rally in the soybeans on Thursday, up about 23 cents in the January. What prompted that, especially after what we've been talking about with the tariff concerns? Was it soybean oil or what led it?
At the end of the day, it was more about soy oil than anything. We saw some really big export sales Thursday morning on soy oil, 114,000 metric tons, I believe. That's a really large number for 1 week. So we are competitive in the world. Palm oil is at a premium and has been surging higher. So I think that's leading soy oil higher. It's dragging the beans. Also, beans lagged a little bit with corn's rally on Wednesday and had a little catching up to do. And there was some rumors there. I don't know if they're true yet that you did maybe see China back in the market trying to buy a little bit more for like the December time slot. There's no confirmation of that. There weren't any fresh sales announced the last couple of days on beans. So I think it's a combination of all that. And also maybe people leaning a little bit too much on the short side with the election of President Trump. Didn't get the push lower. And so the reaction, especially with soy oil rallying, was violent to the upside, it seemed.
How surprised have you been with the reversal that we were able to put in that soybean market, considering we may see tariffs after Trump comes in?
Yeah, pretty surprised. Pretty surprised. That's why I don't think you can trust it very far just yet. Obviously, we know from the past couple of years, soy oil can lead beans higher, and there is some bullish fundamentals on the soy oil market right now. But I just don't know. You really have pretty ideal weather conditions, it looks like, in Brazil. So coming into mid-November, you only got about 60 days left down there to generate some sort of a big weather problem. And that's not a big window. And if they continue to get rains into the end of November, first week or two of December, it looks like they're having at least an average to a big crop down there. And that's looming once January, February comes. So I don't know if you can get super bulled up about beans right now, but it is shocking and a little bit surprising in my mind to see the rally as sharp as it was off those lows from overnight Tuesday.
Well, corn certainly tried to follow soybeans, and we had such strong weekly exports, about, I think, 109 million bushels. But corn wasn't really able to do much. Why?
So I think a couple things there, maybe some spread, corn bean spreading, where you sold the corn, bought the beans to get that spread back in line. Also, the rally in corn was kind of coinciding with some really pushes in basis in some areas of the country, and I think it uncovered some farmers selling on the corn to kind of get us, pushing a little bit lower. And corn was caught in the middle with the surging beans, but wheat couldn't get anything going yesterday, and it was on the lower side. So I think corn was kind of stuck in the middle.
The corn market, do you think we are just going to stay range bound, or what is it going to take to get us out of these trading ranges that we've been in?
Yeah, I think demand, if you look at demand, it is massive. There's no question about it. We've sold over 300 million bushels of corn in the last 3 weeks, and more sales, flash sales here yet this week. So I think it's demand. I'm probably a little more bullish on corn in the short run. Seasonally, we typically have some strength both in basis and flat price potentially into maybe that Christmas, New Year's time frame. So I think demand is enough to maybe see some more upside in corn, but I think longer term it's more of a range. I think it's got a better base of demand and friendliness holding us under the market as support than what the bean market does. So I think as you look between corn and beans, maybe I'm a little more friendly personally to corn, but I think you mentioned too, corn can't rally too far unless wheat's going to participate, and wheat has kind of been the thing that's held corn back a little bit here the last couple of months.
Right. So wheat has been running into chart resistance, but we've also had some better rains in some of those HRW areas, which has also been kind of capping it, the rally too, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're also into harvest in the southern hemisphere, particularly Australia, and it sounds like they have an okay crop down there. So that's probably helped a little bit. Certainly some really good rains in some of those areas you mentioned. It wasn't everywhere. I know there's areas that missed out, but boy, some of those rains were right on time, getting the crop, good in good shape going into winter, and certainly something that was very beneficial in those areas that received it in the wheat country.
So it is a big week, election. We also have the WASDE coming out on Friday. And what's your thoughts about, are we going to see much yield decrease? And at least on corn, will we see a little increase in exports or demand?
There's all the indications in the world that you could probably see the USDA increase demand on corn, probably hold steady on demand in the beans. Yield is another question. Corn, and talking to people, talking to farmers in areas that finished up, corn was really, really dry. Even though it yielded well and the test weight was good, I'm scratching my head wondering if maybe that dry end, moisture-wise, and talking to elevators, there doesn't seem to be a lot of big piles around. So I think this demand swallowing up the corn feels like maybe there's some room to drop corn yields a little bit. I'm not sure that they will, but I think the surprise would be you walk in here and see the USDA cut corn yields just a little bit. That could add some fuel to the upside. Beans, anyone's guess, flip a coin there. I think they're probably very close as far as bean yields go. I think the thing, though, that the elephant in the room, so to speak, is going to be when you look at the Brazil bean production estimate with an average crop, they're going to be near a 6 billion bushel total crop size down there. That's looming. It's 90 days away from starting. If they don't see much of a problem down there production wise, I really think that's kind of a wet blanket over the bean market right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back to what you said about yield on soybeans, when you got 8-9% moisture, I would be less surprised to see a cut in soybean yields versus corn at this point.
Yeah, same thing there. I mean, beans were extremely dry, but yields were good. So both corn and beans, it makes you say, well, if we had normal moisture on this crop, how big would yields have been? I mean, you're talking about the potential for monstrous yields down the road, but it just got
Mhm.
too dry, too late, too windy. That just a really dry end, and those moisture levels were really dry in both corn and beans.
The third part of the trifecta in terms of the big news this week, the Fed decision, we did get that out at 1 o'clock, 0.25% decline. That was not a shock to the market, but what is the market, or what does the Fed do going forward? Are they done for the year?
I would say they're done for the year. I think they almost backed themselves into a corner and had to do this 0.25% in November. It's really interesting to me that the bond market, which oftentimes people say the bond market is never wrong. It always gets things right. The stock market oftentimes can get things wrong. Obviously, commodity markets can get things wrong. It's been a real head scratcher here as the Fed's been lowering rates right now, 0.75% in the last 2 months. The bond market itself has been screaming higher in interest rates. So something's got to give there. I don't know what it is. Obviously, we've got a new administration coming in January. So there's the makings for some real volatility in the financial markets. And obviously, that has a spillover effect to our commodity markets, grain and livestock markets. But boy, it's a head scratcher. I would be really shocked if the Federal Reserve continues lowering. I think they're done for the year, but something's got to give between what the Fed's been doing and what the interest rate market itself has been doing, and they're exact opposite right now.
Cattle market was back higher, and it did feel like today maybe the lower interest rates helped out that market. We've been getting a little push, I think, from the stock market too, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that big surge, what was it, 1,400 plus points in the Dow on the day after the
Wednesday.
election,
Mhm.
really spilled over and helped support the cattle. You've seen the boxes slip just a little bit. We've talked in weeks and months past. I'm really concerned with the exports. They weren't very good on Thursday. They haven't been real good, other than a couple off weeks. They haven't been real good for a couple of months now on the beef. So you got to really wonder, is the demand going to be able to stay there, especially if there's some tariffs that come to pass immediately? China's been very quietly a large buyer of U.S. beef, and obviously we know they're a huge buyer of U.S. pork. And you got to wonder if these tariffs go into place sooner rather than later, if they're really going to back off and see that go to a zero.
Well, and since you mentioned exports and hogs, we had cancellations this morning, a marketing year low. The market held up pretty darn well considering that.
I really did. It really did. Again, I think the other thing at hand here that I'm not 100% sure this, it was probably in effect in a lot of different commodity markets, soft commodity markets, probably the grain markets, and maybe to a lesser extent the livestock markets. I think you're getting with the a little bit of anticipation or expectation that the Trump administration could maybe revive um, the inflation a little bit with these tariffs. And so I
Yeah.
think maybe you got some money flowing into commodities, thinking that commodities in general are cheap. Now, hogs and cattle, you would say, probably aren't necessarily cheap, but I do think maybe there's a benefit of some money coming off the sidelines and wanting to be long commodities right now.
That's a good point. All right. Thanks so much, as always, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing, and that's Markets Now.